Hello, and welcome to the QMS Certification channel. Today, we're going to talk about 3 important changes related to ISO 9001 to 2026 that most people are not discussing. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and leave your like on this video. At the time of this recording, the revision process is already at an advanced stage, with publication of the new edition expected in the final quarter of 2026. But beyond the most obvious changes to ISO 9001, there are some important details organizations and quality professionals should understand. So let's look at 3 of them. Change number 1, certification transition will not happen immediately. The first point is something that can easily be misunderstood. The publication of ISO 9001:2026 does not mean organizations will immediately begin receiving certification to the new version. There is a transition process that must happen first. Certification bodies themselves need time to prepare for the new standard and complete the applicable transition process with their accreditation bodies. Only after the necessary accreditation and certification arrangements are in place can certification activities under the new version begin. So when ISO 9001:2026 is officially published, there is no reason to panic. Organizations will have time to understand the changes and prepare appropriately. The first step should be to evaluate the new requirements, understand what changed, determine how those changes affect your quality management system, and then conduct a gap analysis against the new version. The important message is this: publication and certification transition are not the same thing. The release of the new standard begins the transition process. It does not mean organizations need to transition overnight. Change number 2. Quality culture and ethical behavior become more explicit. The second change involves 2 concepts that are receiving significant attention: quality culture and ethical behavior. But there is an important distinction here. These concepts are not completely new to quality management. Elements of quality culture and ethical behavior were already implicit within previous versions of ISO 9001. What changes with ISO 9001:2026 is that these concepts become more explicit within the quality management system. This follows the historical evolution of ISO 9001. Think about the transition from ISO 9001:2008 to ISO 9001:2015. The 2008 version included preventive action. Then, in 2015, preventive action disappeared as a specific requirement, and risk-based thinking became embedded throughout the management system. The underlying concept did not simply disappear, it evolved. Something similar is happening with quality culture and ethical behavior. Organizations have always needed leadership, accountability, appropriate behavior, and a culture capable of supporting quality objectives. Now these concepts become more clearly expressed within the ISO 9001 framework. So organizations should not necessarily think, we need to create an entirely new system for quality culture. Instead, they should ask, how is quality culture already demonstrated within our organization? How does leadership reinforce ethical behavior? How are these principles reflected in decision-making? And most importantly, how can we demonstrate this objectively within our quality management system? The transition is therefore from implicit expectations to more explicit expectations. That distinction is important. Change number 3. ISO 9001 is preparing for the future. The third change is particularly interesting. ISO 9001:2026 begins preparing the quality management system framework for topics that may become increasingly important in future revisions: technology, artificial intelligence, sustainability and ESG, supply chain resilience, and other emerging organizational challenges. This does not necessarily mean ISO 9001:2026 establishes specific mandatory requirements for organizations to implement artificial intelligence, ESG programs, or advanced supply chain systems. That distinction is extremely important. Instead, some of these concepts begin appearing through terminology, notes, supporting explanations, and broader concepts surrounding the standard. In other words, ISO 9001 is creating a foundation for the future, and this makes sense when we look at how ISO standards evolve. ISO standards respond to changes in the business environment. Artificial intelligence is already transforming organizations. Digital technologies are changing processes. Supply chains are increasingly interconnected. Sustainability expectations continue to evolve, and organizational resilience has become increasingly important. ISO 9001 cannot ignore these developments. However, management system standards usually evolve progressively. New concepts may first appear indirectly. Organizations become familiar with them. The concepts mature, and future revisions may eventually incorporate them more explicitly. That is why some of the language surrounding ISO 9001:2026 may be particularly important when we think about the long-term evolution of the standard. So, what are the three changes? Let's summarize. First, the transition to ISO 9001:2026 will not happen immediately after publication. Certification bodies and accreditation bodies also have transition processes to complete before certification activities under the new version can fully begin. Second, quality culture and ethical behavior are becoming more explicit. These concepts were already embedded within quality management principles, but the new version gives them greater visibility within the management system framework. And third, ISO 9001:2026 begins preparing the foundation for future developments involving technology, artificial intelligence, sustainability, ESG, supply chains, and organizational resilience. Some of these topics may not represent direct certification requirements today, but they provide important signals about where quality management is heading. ISO 9001 has continuously evolved alongside changes in organizations, technology, markets, and society. And ISO 9001:2026 represents another step in that evolution. The question is your organization prepared not only for ISO 9001:2026, but also for the future of quality management? Thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.